Hello, I'm Pastor Nanette Christofferson, and along with Pastor Steve Talmadge, we offer these short Bible studies on our lectionary readings. This week is Pentecost 12, and we find ourselves in the Old Testament in the book of Proverbs, chapter 25, verses 6 to 7. There are commentary clips this week by Ann Stewart from her commentary of 2019. When we take a look at this book of Proverbs, we see that it's actually an opportunity to reflect. If you've ever sat down to read the book of Proverbs, perhaps you found that it was difficult to read all the way through, even though it's not that long of a book, because of the sayings, because there's like 2 or 3 verses, or maybe even 2 verses, or just one, that cause you to pause, to stop, and to reflect. So as we look at these sayings in Proverbs, we see that they are really an invitation for reflection upon the sacredness of the everyday. Proverbs draws attention to the ordinary moments that reveal our character. The book of Proverbs is a manual of instruction for wise living. Its purpose is to teach students of every type, old and young, experienced and naive, wise and not so wise. The opening words of the book explain its goal: for learning about wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for gaining instruction and wise dealing, righteousness, justice, and equity, to teach shrewdness to the simple, knowledge and prudence to the young. Let the wise also hear again and again and gain in learning, and the discerning acquire skill. To understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. There's a lot that can be compacted into just a few words, and a lot of different types of learning that can take place for all of us through the Proverbs. Unlike other books in the Old Testament, Proverbs is not filled with direct divine speech or prophetic signs. It is not a set of legal codes or narratives of the history of Israel. Rather, it contains practical wisdom that seeks to instruct the student in the realities of daily life. The majority of the book is comprised of collections of short proverbial sayings that feature vivid imagery and pithy reflections. This is one of the features that continues to make Proverbs resonate to this day. Its wisdom is timeless, for it is grounded in observations of the natural world. The sayings have an immediacy to which we can all relate. I would say not only does Proverbs have groundedness in its observations of the natural world, it has groundedness in its observations of just human nature. C.S. Lewis writes, "Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less." The book of Proverbs' advice about the formation of character is to promote the flourishing of the community before God. Humility is one of the chief character virtues that Proverbs prizes because of its profound conviction that all wisdom belongs to God. In this sense, the ultimate goal of wisdom is to cultivate an awe and reverence of the divine. Thus, Proverbs 9:10 states, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight." Similarly, Proverbs 3:5 advises, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own insight or on your own understanding." Perhaps that is one of my favorite advices that Proverbs brings to us. So let's take a look at the Proverbs reading we have today. 2 verses packed with wisdom. Proverbs 25, 6 to 7. "Do not put yourself forward in the king's presence, or stand in the place of the great. For it is better to be told, 'Come up here,' than to be put lower in the presence of a noble." Practicing humility. Practicing humility in the context of community requires one to listen carefully to others before rendering judgment. No one person has the market cornered on wisdom, but the wisdom of God can be mediated through human voices. Proverbs 19:20 advises, "Listen to advice and accept instruction, that you may gain wisdom for the future." Yet the very next insists that wisdom is rooted in God alone. The human mind may devise many plans, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will be established, in Proverbs 19:21. Humility is rooted in a confession of the limited nature of human knowledge. Ultimately, it is a character virtue that is cultivated not individually, but always in relation to God and to one's neighbors. Our lesson today is really about table etiquette. So if we look at it in this light, the advice about table etiquette provided in Proverbs 25, 6-7 is not simply about navigating the royal court, but more broadly, it is about an orientation to the world that is grounded in a theological conviction. How one treats others at the table reveals something about one's character and one's view of their relation to others and to God. Do not put yourself forward in the king's presence or stand in the place of the great, for it is better to be told, "Come up here," than to be put lower in the presence of the noble. So how is your character revealed? Because this is also true for us in the 21st century. How you treat people in traffic or in line at the grocery store or in the midst of the daily inconveniences of life reveals something about how you view others and how you view God. Character is lived out in our everyday experiences. There's a sacredness to ordinary encounters, which present opportunities to exercise wisdom, humility, and the fear of the Lord. This is what Proverbs is about. Every moment is an occasion for wisdom and is an occasion for a wisdom lesson, even seating arrangements. So let's just have a little fun here with a few questions. When it comes to humility, when do you find it most difficult to have a spirit of humility? Perhaps the most difficult time for you to find a spirit of humility is when you know you are right and when you're invested in being right, so that it's very difficult to remove yourself from that rightness and to have a humble heart. Why is a humble spirit so important? Well, for most of us, we understand that a humble spirit is so important because if we can't humble ourselves and listen to others, then our own character will not grow. Do you have a pithy saying that you live by, or a proverbial saying? It might not be actually from Proverbs, but another saying that is a way that you use to check yourself. If you do, I'd love to hear it. You can email me and let me know. I'd love to hear that if you kind of have a proverbial saying or something that you use to keep you on track. Well, I pray this week as we think about humility and humbleness, I pray that we are able to walk in a way of walk in a way of being humble, so that we might be open to what God is trying to teach us in our interactions this week. May we walk in a way of humility. Blessings to you as you go about your week.